Hello, this is Roseville Mayor Dan Rowe. I wanted to take a moment to thank Arts Roseville and the Ramsey County Library System for their featured artist program and for adapting to our current times by taking the program online in order to reach a wider audience. I believe the arts are important to us both as ways to express the feelings and emotions of our lives and our times, but also to find peace and meaning and hopefully understanding through creative expression and the enjoyment of that expression by others. I hope everyone gets a chance to connect with the Featured Artist Program and to appreciate and support the great local talent we have.
Welcome to the Arts Roseville Featured Artist Program, a partnership with the Roseville Public Library. My name is Eden Bart, and I am on the board of Arts Roseville, a local nonprofit organization with a mission to advance arts, creativity, and community in Roseville. The Featured Artist Program provides an opportunity to learn and hear from local artists across a variety of arts, mediums, and genres. We hope you enjoy the program.
Hi, I'm Jansen Bidman.
And I'm Jevin Bidman.
And we're on the board of Arts Roseville. Our featured artist today was inspired to take up painting when a few years ago his wife gave him a painting class as a gift. He specializes in Italian landscapes, seascapes, and architecture.
He favors acrylic paint, but has dabbled in watercolor, oil, and charcoal.
Please welcome Francesco Favazza.
I'm Francesco Favazza. Originally, I was born actually about 500 feet from what you see here on the screen. It's in Sicily, and I've been in this country for a long time. I won't say how long, but I still go back. My mom still lives there. My brother, sister, cousins. I'm the only one here from the family. So I do like to paint scenes from that, partly because obviously I love it, I know it, and maybe it makes me feel closer to it. But so let's get going. Talk about how I got into painting. Let me see how I move here. There we go. So this is not current. This is my elementary school drawings, and I bring it up only because it wasn't. I mean, this is the last time I did any painting before 4 years ago was then elementary school. I went to school in an Italian school. You can see the names are in Italian up there. Still life and landscape. That's what's up here. And I never thought I would actually pursue painting or arts in any way because I wanted to be a pilot as a kid and as a teenager and in college. So I never actually pursued it. But then I met Karen, my wife, and after we got married, I showed her how to hollow an egg and then paint it for Easter, something that Mom had taught me. And she actually liked these, and I was surprised because they looked kind of basic. But she thought they were nice and they were pretty, and that was it. Then we had kids, and all my painting stopped. That was the last time we painted Easter eggs. And the kids, they grew up and they went to college. And then Karen, remembering that she thought I had talent, decided to give me a class for my birthday, painting class. And that's how I actually got into painting. I always appreciated art, but more as just observing art than actually doing it. So I'll talk about how I started because it was kind of interesting. Again, I never thought myself as a creative person. I like to cook. Maybe there was some creativity in cooking. I did a lot of spreadsheets at work, and you can be creative with spreadsheets, but it's not something that's very sexy or easy to display and to appreciate if you're not actually preparing the analysis. But having said that, she gave me a class with Kat Corrigan, who's a local artist who paints acrylics. And I was real apprehensive at first because I've never done it, anything but those pencils you saw before. But actually the class was fantastic because first of all, it was all adults. So she taught adults like adults. And then it was very basic to begin with, which was perfect for all of us because none of us had done any painting. Basic meaning from setting up your palette. We only used 5 colors, so we learned to mix all those colors from just 5 versus putting additional colors in there. Once in a while, if you need like a silver or gold, obviously you can get that, but everything else was based on this just initial 5 colors. We learned how to mix and get the different colors from it, learn the rules of composition, and then values. And what's funny is that she called them rules of composition, but then she says there's no rules. So, but I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder, whatever you like. And then as part of the class, which like any other class, we actually had homework and exercises to do. And one thing with Kat is she subscribes to the daily paint movement. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically a group of artists that believe in painting something small every day to get your creativity just growing and moving forward. So the exercises were meant to be done every day. We had 4 paintings per week to do, 1 color per stroke, which sounds, what is that? And basically, the idea was a lot of people take their brush, they get a color, and then they kind of dab all over the canvas. She said, no, take the color, put it down, and then you got to go back and get another color or the same color, but then you go back. And the idea is to make you think before you put the brush down on the canvas. Which it sounds like, I don't know, basic and odd, and why would you do that? But it's really hard because then you realize how many times you're not going back and you're just using the same color on your brush. And so it made you think. It made you kind of go, wait a minute, I gotta see what I'm going to do here before I get another stroke because I only have the 1 stroke to do. And then the other one that I think every time she brought up in class, we all groaned, was a 10-minute time paintings. She took a 8x8, cut it in 4s, not cut it, but drew a 4, in it. And we had then the same subject, like you can see here, the orange, this orange is here. So it's the same subject. You move it after 10 minutes and you paint, but she timed you, and you have to draw it first, and then you put the color on it. And 10 minutes comes faster than you think, even if it's a small painting. And a lot of us were like frustrated because we weren't finishing or we were rushing through it. But in the end, it actually helped us quite a bit in getting to do what really we wanted to do versus just putzing around and painting too much and ending up ruining the painting because we were thinking too much about it. So it's a fun one. We actually like it now when she has us do that. The weekly homework consisted of 6x6 the panels that we took home, and then we had to do each week was a different subject, whether it was still life or a landscape or an animal, and so on. And then during classes, she had other lessons that she would do. Like she always did a demonstration, and we did cups, which sounds basic, but it kind of, you learn ellipses, proportions, lighting, and in the end, actually, kind of fun. And some of the paintings that Karen likes the best are the cups that we did. So here's some examples. This is one of my first paintings. It's an onion, which, considering it was like in the first year, probably the 3rd week, I liked it. It was good, but that's the one that I liked of all the ones that I did then. The other ones I actually painted over because they were somewhat horrible. And more recently, here's a pear and an apple, and I like to think that it's progressed, that the choice of lighting and colors and the shading and the backlit, the light that comes from the bottom are showing up a lot more than, say, in this onion here, which again I still like. But so then these are all 6x6 paintings, so they're fairly small. In the daily painting movement, this would take maybe half hour to an hour to get done, but you do it every day so that you get accustomed to thinking quick and not overthinking what you want to put on the canvas.
I have a question about those. Why is fruit such a popular choice for still life paintings?
Well, I never actually asked that question. My guess is, well, a couple of things. One of them, they're easy to get and they're simple, right? So for our class, she would come in, the teacher, with a bag of apples or a bag of oranges, so it's easy to carry versus carrying, a dead bird and a dead fish, right? I mean, there's some of that, at least in practicality. But having said that, once you look at the apple, like this green apple here, it's amazing how many colors actually show up in there. And so the roundness, with the lighting hitting it, gives so many different choices for how to paint it that I think it's a good exercise. Now, I guess you could do a fish or a dead bird, but again, who wants to bring that into a classroom? I guess at some point in advanced classes that might make sense, but for basic, to learn how to do shapes and how to do colors and how to do the 3D and the lighting, fruit really work well. Or onions, I guess. I don't know if it's a fruit or not.
Looking at the difference between your green apple and the onion, I feel like the apple is just so much more three-dimensional, and the onion is like flatter almost. Do you feel like your perception of shading and lighting has changed, just not even in painting, but also in daily life when you look at things? Do you feel like you just notice so many more variations in objects?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting because I never really looked at things before like I do now. As I'm driving or as I'm looking, I always have an eye for like, oh, that'd be a great painting. So I look at that, and reason being not just because it's a nice piece, but the lighting on it, for instance, or the shape and how it interacts with the surroundings. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it has changed. And the onion was 4 years ago. That was my first class. And I think, like I said, the second or third week in class, the apple was maybe a month or two ago. So I like to think that I progressed. I said I like the onion just because it's a good example of what I started on with, originally. But I love the apple now because it shows, hopefully I progressed, but I actually like it better. I like the colors. I like the composition. I like the two-dimensionality that you can see, like with the stem coming out. And so, yeah. Does that answer?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So another example, I mentioned the cups. So these are all exercises that we do in class, or that we did at home, we brought home. And some of these, you can see like this red one here, and the yellow one, and this one green up here, were the one stroke per color exercises. But I actually like them. I think they came up, they're not meant to be an actual color. It's not like you're looking at, we're mixing real. They're just expressionists. And, but the one stroke per color made it really challenging to do it because you had to think what stroke you had to put down. So the first one, the blue one here, and this one down here, the kind of with the large rim, were not the one stroke per color exercises. I like this one down here because the rim was really difficult because it's kind of a lip on the cup. And then this one, the blue one up here, I just like the colors on it. It's one of my first ones as well, and I really did like this blue color on it. Plus, the background is the painted table that the cup was sitting on. These other ones I did by putting colored manila envelopes behind them, and then painting based on what colors they were sitting on. But again, good exercises in getting ellipses done and shading, and then the one stroke per color, just making you think about the color you're going to put down, rather than just kind of rushing through it.
When you were going through the one color per stroke, did your art teacher ever talk about the Impressionists like Monet, Renoir, and just kind of how they painted so quickly just to catch what was happening in that moment? And did you feel like, ooh, I'm Monet right now as you were painting these cups?
Oh, I still have to feel like that. I know. I think these guys are amazing. In fact, like whenever I go to the museum, the MIA here, and I see what other artists have done like that, you're like, it just humbles you. It's amazing how they could do it that quickly. She did explain, she didn't go in the more the classic folks. She has a group of artists that she follows, some Canadian ones that are more in her style, which is very broad strokes. We exclusively pretty much use flathead round, I think they're called round brushes. They're not round, they're just flat at the top and fairly wide, like about not quarter, half an inch to an inch wide. You can see on the, like for instance, on this yellow one, how broad the strokes are. I've since then modified, and I use whatever brush I want. But in the beginning, using her style, this is what we were working with. And what's nice about those big brushes is you do see the strokes, and you can use them also to do thin lines because you can do just the tip of the brush. So it is quite versatile. But since then, like I said, I've whenever I have to do different painting, I'll use a smaller brush too if needed. But no, she didn't talk about Monet and so on. She talked about the Canadian Seven, I think she called, and I don't remember the names, I'm sorry. But some of the examples that she opened books for us and she showed us how they were doing paintings. And again, they're all different from her as well too. But everybody borrows a little bit for somebody else. And she said it's okay for artists to, not steal, but to borrow other artists, tools or tricks and just make them your own. It's not something that, unless you're copying like the Mona Lisa, you can copy the Mona Lisa exactly as is. Great. That's not really being, that's not what she's talking about. She's saying like if you want to take part of somebody else's trick or talent and do it your own, it's completely okay to do that.
Now, when you're doing these exercises, you talked about your brush choice a little bit. In the beginning, did you find it hard to choose a brush, or were you so focused on the subject and getting the colors? Like what kind of goes through your brain when you've got those 10 minutes?
Well, in the beginning, because basically she provided us with the brush, I didn't really think about it. I mean, I just kind of used whatever brush came with her. We got a stay wet palette, because the acrylics dry really fast. So you put the colors on the stay wet palette, which has got a little bit this punch that's humid underneath. And then you close it so it stays. You can use them 2 days later and they're fine. So she provided that to us, and then these brushes that were flat on top. And I didn't think about it until later, as I started doing my own paintings, not a cup, but let's say, like for instance, landscapes. Then I had, I'm like, man, this is really hard to do this arch or this column or whatever I was working on with this big, thick brush. So then I would go ahead and look at the smaller brushes. And I do that today now too. I start with the bigger ones, especially for the surroundings, for the stuff outside of the subject. But then for the subject, sometimes I will go and use smaller ones. But smaller, not the little tiny pointy ones. I don't do any of those. It's still 1/4 inch at least wide. So.
Do you ever find that you manipulate the brush by like squeezing the bristles and experiment that way as well?
Yeah, part of it is, and the way Kat shows it when she's using the brush, it's always so clean and so smooth. Me and all the other students in this class, we all comment that our brushes are all gloopy and full of stuff. So, in order to avoid that, what I'm doing now is we always have paper towels, and we just squeeze them every time we go in and change colors. Water a little bit, but mostly squeezing them. And then what I'd like to do as well too is to get different effects. Is take the brush with the color and then brush it on like a piece of paper or something else, and then bring it to the canvas. And it's a little drier, so it gives you a little different effect versus just putting on a nice fresh coat of the acrylic. And so for that, like you can do something to make them look transparent, like a window or a glass, and it works well for that.
Great.
So I'm not going to go through all the cups because, frankly, there's more. This is the 10-minute exercise. So each one of these was 10 minutes. These are 4x4s in a large 8x8. And like I said, it's actually kind of unnerving the first time you do it because you just forget where the time is and you want to keep going. But in a way, I like the results at the end because they're not overthought. So I kind of I like that exercise, and I don't do it personally at home myself. It's more about in class to just kind of get going. But I suppose I should do some of these 10 or 20-minute paintings just for fun. This is more recent. I was in Italy a year ago, and I just took shots of all my espresso cups. And I had these coasters at home that were like 4x4s, and I gessoed over them. So the painting, usually we gesso in black, and then we paint over black. And at least in the style that I've been learning. And so that's what these are. They're 4x4 paintings and coasters. And actually I have them up in my house and, as a set, so they kind of work well together. I enjoy them. I like the colors of the skin, and then just croissants up here or some other sort of food. But I thought they were fun. I like the shape of the cups. I like the coffee kind of in the middle, the idea of the coffee. They're not obviously perfect and not meant to be, but they're just kind of fun little reminders of Italy.
So are these all painted with a live subject in front of you?
Some of them were, but most of them, like this one here, the one with the green, yes. The other ones, I took pictures when I was there, and like you were saying before, Jansen, like, do I see things differently? I do. And so I was like, oh man, that's a great shot. And I would take a picture of the coffee with the croissant, or the coffee with the sugar little packets behind it, and so on. This one here, I'm sorry, I'm pointing and I realized. The one with the coffee being made right here. Can you see the pointers when it's
Yep.
Okay. That one was actually in my hometown in Sicily, and I just took a picture of the barista making the coffee, and I just love the shading in that shot. And also I wanted to practice drawing over metal, that's one of the challenges that I always have. So this is why this kind of color here. It's meant to look like metal. And I'm still learning that. And the one thing is I'm still learning. I mean, I've only been doing this for 4 years, so it's not like I'm an expert, but it is fun to try and do different things. And metal is one of the challenges I'm trying to work on right now.
What is it about metal that is kind of stumping you?
Well, it's shiny. The color palette that we use is basic colors. So we don't have silver or golds or those colors you can get that are, special, that you can make it look like silver or like a steel. So I had to do this using black, whites, purples. And the idea is just how do you make the illusion that it is metal without actually having the metal colors? And that's the challenge. And when you see it live, because it's smaller, it actually, you can see the from afar, it actually looks like metal more so than when you see it here on the screen, unfortunately. But it is challenging because I've seen on this daily paintwork site that I put my paintings on, there's some people that do metal, and you look at it and you think it's a picture. It's amazing. And I don't want to get there. It's not my style. I don't want to be doing realistic, photorealism kind of painting, because some people that do that are amazing and literally look like a picture. I want to make sure that people understand that's what that is. So,
are all of these in acrylic paints?
Yeah. I do paint mostly acrylic. I did take a lesson in oil. Did plein air painting at the atelier here in town, and I gotta be honest. At first, that was the most frustrating thing for me because I started learning in acrylic, which dries very fast. So by the time you finish one part of the painting, you can go back 10 minutes later when it's dry, and you can go over it if you need to, or do some things. With oil, you can't do that. And I, being used to working in acrylic, I would try to go over, and then it would just smush and would coagulate into this mess, and I just it was frustrating. But in the end, I appreciated it, and I want to keep trying. But for now, I'm sticking to acrylic. I did also take a charcoal drawing class, and that was more about studying value and shade. I literally, like these paintings here, I could do 4 in a day because they're small. The one nose that I did at the atelier charcoal took me 14 weeks every Saturday for 4 hours.
Oh,
And I would come home exhausted, because that was the point there, was to be realistic. And I'm happy with the result, but man, that's not I don't know if I want to do it every time. So that's amazing that those students can do at the atelier with charcoal. And then I've tried lately. I have some colored pencils that I bought in Italy, and I've been using that and acrylic together to do some different things. I have one of my last paintings, which I think later on in the slides shows that. But basically, 90% is still acrylic. So once we stopped with the oranges and the apples, Kat had us start working on animals and landscapes and other subjects of our choice. And so, and that's when it became more fun. I mean, I like doing apples and oranges, but frankly, it gets kind of boring after a while. So here's some examples of animals. And this little guy up here, Scout, actually this year. That's Pippa and a friend of mine's dog, and Scout again here, a little aged from that time there, and a little younger. And I actually enjoyed doing the animals because I really have a hard time doing people. I still am not confident enough to do people well. I'm trying, but for whatever reason, animals to me seem less complicated. Maybe it's all the fur covering their face. I don't know. But I feel more confident doing animals, and so I'm sticking to that. So
you can definitely see the emotions in their faces.
Yeah, I'm amazed at like Scout. This one here, in fact, Karen, my wife, has Scout and Nikki and Pippa in her office because she loved. It's basically the dog. I mean, which is fun. It's kind of fun that it came out that way. And my friend really liked the sad look on this little guy here. But he always looks sad like that. He actually looks like that, so that's kind of fun. But I enjoy doing animals, and those obviously are from pictures because you can't have an animal sit and paint. So take a picture, and then we cut from pictures. And then for exercises, sometimes these are pictures that I took. And then drew and then painted. But like this one here, I didn't take a picture of a hummingbird, but I liked the picture, so I painted it. And I like the motion in this one here, even though it's not moving, but it feels like it's got motion, like it's hovering in front of you. So and plus I left the background completely black because I thought that this bird by itself just was fine. It didn't need anything else. So sometimes I don't do it often, but once in a while you see it and go, I kind of like the way it is. And then landscapes. I love doing landscapes. And I love doing Italian landscapes mostly because I love Italy. And I go back as much as I can. And this is in Tuscany. This is all from last September. And I took all these photos with the intention that I was going to paint them at some point. So even though I'm taking the photos, like, why would you take a photo of a window? This is the window that I was staying at. Well, because I love the reflection in the photo and the lighting and the window on the side. So that's the reason why I took that photo. This is just a path with cypress on both sides. That I just thought the lighting was amazing, coming from the west as the sun was setting. This on here is the Tower San Gimignano, and this is at dawn. I got up really early, probably jet lag. I think I was up at 6 o'clock and went to the top of this one hill, and I loved the colors of the dawn, and took a few pictures and tried and painted it. And then this is the opposite. This is at night at dusk, so you can see still a little bit of light here in the back, but most of everything else was dark and lit by lights. And this is a little bar right below our window. And then this is just a little alley that I like the arch, and then the lighting that was the result of that, kind of going up into the alley. I just enjoyed doing that.
So pardon my lack of knowledge of Italian geography, but is this northern Italy?
This is Tuscany.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half west of Florence.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm not from this area. I'm from a different part down south. This is just small. These are really small paintings, but and you can see they're not precise. They're not meant to be precise. They're just meant to evoke, like seeing out in the distance different shades of green or a tower. And what's funny is that when I was showing this at class, this was part of my homework. A woman who had just been there about the same time I was immediately recognized this and goes, "Oh, I was there. That's a vineyard, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Really?"
Wow.
And that's kind of fun. And you recognize it because the main thing there is this tower that sticks out of the town. Everything else, obviously, is just meant to evoke little, not forests, but trees and olive groves and roofs and so on. This is a pod here, so just having fun with that stuff. And then I tried to practice some architecture, and this is really, I have a hard time sometimes trying to be too precise, too realistic, and I'd like this because I got away from it. So even though this looks like there's a lot here going on in terms of columns and colors, if you look at the picture that I used, it's so much more complicated. There's so much more things going on that if I had tried to do that, I would have gone mad. So I just decided, and I'm learning to do that more, and it's actually helping me with life too. I guess it's to not necessarily have to be a perfectionist. That kind of just get the idea in there of the colors and the shades, and that's enough. And again, people recognize this as a Duomo in Florence that have been there, and it's pretty straightforward. So going away from Italy, so this is Norway, and this is Copenhagen. Again, these are pictures that I took on vacation, and I particularly liked the colors in this little cottage and the shadings. You can see here, like this picket fence, and then all the different greens in this valley, which was this is looking up from the fjord down, not looking up, sorry, looking inward from the outside of the fjord. So again, all the greens here is what I really liked about it, just because it was amazing. I don't know if you've been to Norway, but it's really fun. So just taking pictures, and then, like I said, with the idea that I want to paint that. These are complete opposite of everything else that I've done so far. Very structural, very geometric. And this is a bridge in Astoria, Oregon, and this is in West Virginia. I just liked the lines of those bridges. I thought they were really amazing, and so thought I'd give it a try. And this is a 6x6, so it's not a big painting. This is a 8x10, I think.
How long would it take to do a painting like this?
This is not one of those 10-minute painting, obviously.
Right.
I mean, the process that what I usually do is I draw it with a graphite pencil. I just saw the board in black, and then I use the graphite pencil to draw the outlines of what I want to do, and then I start painting. Now, in this case, with this bridge, with the green bridge, it was pretty straightforward because it's looking up into the whatever you call this part, the parts of the bridge, the spans. This one here, it was a bigger piece, so this probably took me a couple of hours sessions, like 2 hours one day, 2 hours the next day. And the difficulty was making sure that this all looked like it's three-dimensional and real. And so this was the part that I drew. And everything else, if I draw it, doesn't mean that I'm going to just stick to exactly the drawing that I did. I mean, I kind of start thinking about, well, this has got to be lighter here because it's got to show that this is farther away and there's a valley in between. And so then you kind of improvise, I guess, at times. I'm I guess I'm a big improviser. Let's put it that way. But yeah, this would probably take about an hour, and this for a couple hours.
Okay.
Another ones. This is from my second year. I had a Vespa as a kid. Well, as a teenager. They're basic in Italy, and so I love the way they look, and especially the classic ones more so than the modern ones. In fact, these are all classic Vespas, and I just had fun with the brush strokes. As you can see here, it's not meant to be perfect. It's just meant to say the lines of a Vespa with the curvature, and I just love that like here, this curve here and this curve here, and just making it look like it's it's a Vespa. People recognize it right away when they look at that. And then transportation, still again Italian Fiat 500. This is the most recent one, the black one. I took it last year. Actually, these two. This one was a couple of years ago. They're all. This is a 14 by 12. This is a 11 by I think 12, and then this is a 6 by 6.
You can see a lot more detail in the reflections on the more recent paintings.
Yeah, I agree, and this reflections here is the little town in San Gimignano that I showed with the towers. This car was in the piazza with the towers around it, so you can see all this is meant to reflect the towers from around the piazza. So it's a fun one. They're not exact, but they're just I just enjoy the shapes of these cars. So the classic Fiat 500, not the new one. The new one's okay, but I mean, these are amazing. So they're just fun to draw. And then last transportation piece, I think here, a boat going into the harbor in Sicily, and then these are lifesavers. And this is like from the first year, and I'm looking at it here, and like Karen said, "Oh, I love that one. Put it on there." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I mean, I like it. It's good, but it's very. You can see how I'm trying to get the idea of homes and houses in the background, but not really paying too much attention to it. This one is more realistic with the ropes hanging over this yellow plastic piece with the chain, and I just thought this was fun because it reminds you of our time in this one particular resort in Italy. In fact, this is a big one. This is a 24 by something piece. I have a hard time with the bigger ones. These are all from my hometown in Sicily. That's one of the first paintings I did. I love the mountain because of the shading, and it actually feels and looks like the mountain. That's my grandmother's house that I played in for years and years and years. This is the church in town, the main church. It's my other grandmother's house here. And then this is just a shed up on the hill, and then a house that I love the colors and the way it was with this. These are clay pots that are serving as a downspout. So I enjoyed doing my own town just because I was born there. I went back every summer for all my life, still go back, and it just makes me feel closer, I guess, to it. More transportation, I guess, boats. This is my father-in-law's boat. I was taking sailing lessons in Calhoun or Badamasca, and this is one of the sailboats there. And then these are tuna fishing boats in storage in a museum in Sicily. And each one is different. This one was one of the earlier ones. It's a 9x9, and it's a little more trying to be more precise for his sake, for the boat. Where these are a lot more, you can see like broad strokes, but nothing very precise on there, especially in the background.
Yeah, you can on the one on the right hand side, the earlier one, it kind of looks like everything's on the same plane. Right? The other two, there's more differences between the foreground and background.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I see this, I'm like, I loved it when I first painted it. In fact, he has it up at the lake, but I want to redo one now and see if I can do it differently. Maybe, I don't know. But that's the process of learning and how you progress over time. Here's Rome. This is like an example where, like you were saying, different brush sizes. Obviously, I couldn't do like these little houses here or parts of the forum with the big wide brush. So that's where I started using smaller brushes. But for the most part, it's still using the wide brush works. This was hard because I'm trying to do it's a Trevi fountain, so I'm trying to do a shaft of light coming through from the picture as well, and then the water coming over. And this is where I use the dry brush technique, where you take the brush, you put the paint on it, and then you kind of rub it on some other piece of paper or something else before you go onto the canvas to make it look more not solid. Looks like it's actually sheets of water coming down.
If you make a mistake in a painting, how do you fix it, or what do you do about that?
Well, the beauty of the acrylic is that it dries fast. So if possible, you can go over it with a different color or fix it that way. If for whatever reason, I've done this many times, that doesn't work because the colors are too close or whatever, or the shape is wrong, then I take black gesso and I just gesso over the part that I want to redo. And then just paint it over. So it's the beauty of it. Unlike oils, which I don't get. And then this is just all different landscapes that I've done, from trying to be a little more realistic to just the colors in Cinque Terre. This is in Sicily, temples and Greek theaters. This is one of my favorite places. I go there all the time. In fact, I saw a play in this theater here, which is 2,500 years old. That's part of the beauty of that. Venice, I love this is one of my earliest ones, so you can see how flat it is. Same with this one here, it's a little flatter, and then this is just the colors trying to show shade. And that's part of the beauty of painting too, is like nothing is just gray, like the shade is not gray. It really varies and the lighting, and in this case it's a little purplish, for instance here.
Francesco, how do you decide what size of canvas you want to paint your photograph or subject on?
If it's homework, it's going to be a 6x6 because I don't have that much time to do that. Mm-hmm. If it's just like this larger piece here, it's a 9x12 or a 10x12, I think. It just depends on how much detail or how, what I can fit on it. Plus, most of the square ones, not everything can fit into a square. So it depends on their subject. Some have to be more rectangular than squares, whether it's landscape or portrait. The square ones, sometimes it's really hard to find the subject that will fit into a square. So that's part of how I decide. And sometimes it's whatever I have around.
Sure.
And I love, like I said, architecture. So I tried to do some of these. And even though they look very detailed, believe me, I mean, like these statues, I'm looking at them on the screen and they look like statues, but they're just little brush strokes. And that's what I love about. Sometimes, like the instructor calls it the happy accident, where you kind of just do something and go, oh, that worked. Okay, I'll try it here too. And that happens a lot sometimes. You find certain things that you go, that really works, so let's keep doing that. More architecture. I mean, I love, like, for instance, the shadow of the setting sun here with the light sides, and you can see the house being lit on this side, but then shaded on this. There's just some of that it's here. It's even like up here, this shading that comes out from the roof, and purplish. It's not really purple, but it feels like that when I took a look at the picture. So that's in Umbria. This is in the Caribbean. I went on a Boy Scout trip with my son in the Caribbean, sailing, and these are pictures from there. So I took pictures, and then I loved them, and I painted them. So Mexico, same thing. One of the hardest thing is water, like ocean water here, and I don't think, and even here, this was a sunset. And the problem with the water is that it's all these different shades. Plus, it's got the movement of the waves, and and I don't know how to be honest with you, I don't know how I do it. I just kind of I don't try and copy it. I just kind of put the motion almost with my hand of the waves, and it comes out. So I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then this is completely different. This was during the quarantine here, when we were at home, and I don't know if it means something, but this is a Negroni that I actually made and drank, but I painted it first. These other two are pictures of different kind of martinis that I found online. I'm not a martini guy, so I didn't make those. But and then this is a stout. It's a breakfast beer actually that I took a picture of. It's pretty good. I had it, but then I painted from the picture there. This one was painted from a life piece. And the challenge with doing glass is the glass, because it's see-through, right? And how do you paint glass? And so in some cases, like here with the beer, you can't really see the glass other than up here on the top, where you can have a little bit of a shade, shade there. But in this case here with the martini, it was completely see-through, and the martini itself being a real martini with, I assume, gin or vodka, I forget which one it is, but it's clear too. So that's the challenge there. But I think the trick was to try and, when you put something underwater, there's a little light that the light shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see here how that changed.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I enjoyed doing these just because it was a challenge to do the glass and the orange, but it was fun. And I try to do series sometimes too, because once you do one, and if you see another one, if you do a series, then you're practicing over and over on the kind of, not the subject, but the style or whatever you're trying to fix, like the glass, and it does help. Like in this case here with umbrellas. I started with doing umbrellas, taking pictures from underneath the umbrella because I thought there was nice colors, and then just kind of expanded. And like these are palm frond umbrellas here. This is a storm approaching with the umbrellas closed, but I thought, well, it's an umbrella subject, so I'll put it in. This was in Florida, and what I liked about this one was not so much the umbrella, was the the towel underneath. This was another umbrella that's like flapping in the wind. So I just enjoyed the umbrella seems static, but there's actually a lot of stuff happening there, whether it's through the wind or whether it's just because of the lighting coming through the top. So I really like that one. And I mentioned before the acrylic with color. This is the one that I did recently. It's Niagara Falls. And I originally painted it or drew it with the colored pencils, but there was parts of it that just I couldn't do, like the white of the foam or the steam coming up. And so that's where I put some acrylic over that, and then the back as well too. But everything else is the colored pencils. So it's a mixed media, and I actually enjoyed it when I tried some more of that. And these other two are more just acrylic, straight acrylic. Here's Lake Harriet, and then this is in Oregon, Haystack Rock. Just American landscapes. I just enjoyed I love the water here. And then this was a challenge because the challenge from the teacher was take a boring picture and then see what you can do with it. So this was kind of like a basic, boring picture of a dreary day in the fall, and that's what came out. And then last of the art, these are what are called still life. This is my most recent one here. This flower in a glass jar, and the challenge here was the glass jar and trying to get that idea through that it's a piece of glass with the stem of the flower in there. The scan doesn't necessarily look very metally here, but on the screen. But if you look at live, it actually feels more like metal, even though the colors are completely not the silver and metal color. And then this is a picture that I took in Florida. I love this kind of shell. It's got all sorts of different colors, different curves. and it's on a bench. So, and then pumpkins, of course. One of the hardest things to draw is leaves, frankly, because there's so many planes happening in a leaf, all the curves and all the little different pieces sticking out on the stem. And that's one of the exercises that we do in class. But I like the dynamic view of this leaf that's kind of crunching up as it dries, and it was just fun to do that one.
Cool.
So that was what I had. I mean, I've done some daily paintworks. I encourage people to go to it because they got amazing artists doing a lot of stuff on here. And then Art for Shelter. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's unfortunately this year had to be online, but usually you go and for $30 you get a 5x7 painting from either people like me who do it for a hobby or actual artists that do it for a living. So it's a surprise. You don't know who you're picking when you choose the painting off the wall. And then a solo distancing exhibition is a friend of mine, an Instagram friend of mine, put this together because of the the current crisis, and so we all provided pictures, and then they had this solo distancing exhibition. So
very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Francesco, thank you so much for sharing the PowerPoint. It was great to see your work and hear about your process and your brushstrokes and just your inspiration. Before we move on to the quick fire questions, where can we find you?
So I have a personal blog. It's F like Frank, Francesco paintings.blogspot.com. That's my personal one where I post all my work. And then I also exhibit on dailypaintworks.com. If you go on the site, you can choose by artist and just put my name in there, and I'll have just my galleries also in there as well too. So those two are the primary places that I do anything with.
Perfect. Thank you. Now we are going to head into some final quick fire questions. These are based loosely on Inside the Actors Studio questions. So the first one is, what is your favorite piece of art?
In general, you're saying out there.
Yeah, it could be your work, it could be someone else's work, whatever pops into your head.
Well, I mean, I like my stuff, but I mean, my stuff is fun. So I think I've grown up with the Renaissance art just based on my upbringing, and I walked into the Sistine Chapel several times, and I still get dumbfounded how Michelangelo painted that. It's just amazing. Not just the fact that it looks fantastic, but the technical aspect of how he actually had to do and work. So I think that's probably one of if not my favorite. It's amazing. And then there's so many more in Italy too. I mean, but that's one that sticks out to my. I always think about that one.
I was amazed when we visited Italy that you can walk into some random church and it's just incredible art.
Yeah, you're right. And it's either paintings or people don't think of Palermo in Sicily as a place of art that much. That they think of Florence and Venice and Rome. But actually, there's some amazing churches down there in Palermo that have Norman Byzantine mosaics that look like painting that are amazing, or Baroque Spanish pieces. I highly recommend. That's one place to go to. You find all these secret little places full of art.
All right. So then, what is your least favorite piece of art?
Least favorite. I don't know if I have a least favorite. I've gone to the Walker. There's a lot of modern pieces that I look at, and there's so much interpretation that has to go in there as to like what were they thinking, why was it like this. But sometimes I'm like, to me, art should be just easy to enjoy and easy to understand. And sometimes those are maybe trying to make a point, but if I don't get the point, they're just something that I don't enjoy. So. I mean, not that I don't like modern art. I like a lot of modern art, but some of it is just odd and doesn't say anything. So,
what inspires you?
In terms of art, well, primarily it's things that I love. You know, I mean, everything that I've painted so far, I've had an attachment to, whether it's my hometown in Sicily or Italy, or places that I've been to that, like the Caribbean, that are just stunning, or the Vespas in Cinquecento, which remind me of my youth. So things that I, you know, if you told me to do portraits of people, I wouldn't want to do that. I don't, you know, unless I love the person and want to do it. But otherwise, I'm like not interested in that. Or painting somebody's house, like from a picture. Yeah, I could do that, but that doesn't really, it's not inspiring necessarily. I can do it, but I'd rather do things that I love, that I have familiarity with, and that I know. So,
what turns you off creatively or artistically?
Turns me off. I don't know. I mean, so far I haven't been turned. I mean, I haven't experienced that at this point. You know, there's art is art, and even if I don't like it, I appreciate how the artist came up with it, and that's part of it. Is appreciation the work that went into some of the art pieces. Like I would never put some things in my house, but having said that, it's amazing how some artists do their work and what they do. And so yeah, I don't think I haven't been turned off yet. I'm still in the positive stage, I guess. Still fun.
What has been your favorite personal artistic moment this year?
This year, I think I know it's funny, but doing the drinks, I had fun doing those. Part of it was, and one of them, especially drinking the Negroni, was really fun drinking and painting at the same time. I don't usually do that, but and part of it was just that I just enjoyed doing the scene. It was kind of funny, and yet kind of says something about the time and staying home. And that was probably my favorite this year so far.
This is the desert island question. So if you could only experience one piece of art for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh gosh. So this is not the food question, because desert island usually I associate with food. Like
right, yeah, this is the art.
You're
question.
beyond food. You just need creativity.
Well, I would have said pizza, but the piece of art that I would want to bring with me. It's a tough question. I never even actually thought about it, but and knowing me and how my mind thinks, I'm like, well, I wouldn't want something that's going to get wet in the rain, because I'm going to I don't like rain, and so painting would probably not be good. So probably a statue of some kind. And I love like the statue in Florence of the David. So maybe something like that, or Venus. You know, a beautiful statue that is stone, is not going to wear out and reminds me of humanity.
Is there anything that we haven't asked that we should have?
You know, having never done this before, I don't think so. I think there's a lot of good questions. Made me think quite a bit. Next time somebody does this with me, I'll have a lot more prepared stuff to say. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. This is really fun. It's fun to share, you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Francesco. We really enjoyed talking with you, and I feel like we could just keep talking to you for another hour at least.
Oh, yeah. Hey, anytime, you know. maybe hopefully once this thing is over, we'll get to meet.
Yeah, we'll get together and have a Negroni.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for the Arts Roseville Featured Artist Program. If you haven't had a chance to see the beautiful Unity Tower located at the Roseville Public Library's garden, I encourage you to check it out. This was a wonderful collaboration with students from Roseville Middle School, artist Lori Green from Mosaic on a Stick, and Arts Roseville. We look forward to future community collaborations. To learn more about Arts Roseville and to join our email list, please visit artsroseville.org, and also please follow us and like us on Facebook. Thanks again for joining us for the program.